Center for Family Health. They've been at it for 35 years, and it starts today from Jackson Storyfest and Jackson District Library, Rachel Fenningsdorf, and two of the Storyfest storytellers, Judy Sema and Larry Castleberry. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Great to have you here. Great to have you back in Jackson again, both of you.
I'm glad to be back.
So it kicked off today. How'd it go?
It kicked off today. It went great. Larry actually told 4 stories at Vista Grand Villa this morning, and we had a great showing from the community, and they laughed the whole time. So it was, it was just so funny and very interesting, and they were all true stories, and so that was the best part.
Nice. So Silver Tales is the traditional kickoff for Storyfest for seniors, but then tomorrow you'll be taking storytellers all throughout Jackson County.
Yeah, we have, I think, 15 total storytellers that will be at most of the area elementary schools and some of the middle schools throughout the county. And so it's been a massive logistical piece of coordination, and it's been a lot of fun. And so we're really excited. The schools are very excited. They keep emailing me with, I can't wait. So.
Well, both Larry and Judy have been here in the past. In fact, Judy, you've been here how many times?
29 years.
What?
Yes.
29 years?
I've been telling, here in Jackson.
Where are you from?
West Bloomfield.
And what brings you back to Jackson year after year?
The kids, the stories, and the camaraderie with the storytellers. Mm-hmm. This is the only chance we get to really see each other. Usually we're performing alone, so it's nice to be able to catch up with folks.
And Larry, you're back in Jackson.
I am. This is my second time, and I just love it. I love telling stories, and I get to interact with Judy, and I get to see wonderful
Are you
individuals.
competitive? Do you compete?
Oh, no.
No. Do you steal from each other?
No, we support each other.
Very
And
supportive community.
I think the biggest question you get, number one question you all get, is how do you get to be a storyteller? You get kids inspired to get into the.
Well, I wrote a book about it. It's called Raising Voices, Creating Youth Storytelling Groups and Troops. And it's a manual for teachers to help kids tell stories and perform them, and ideas of creating stories. So what teachers can do is get some picture books and have the kids read the picture books and then retell the story. And then add some gestures and maybe some jokes or something like that. That'll get them started.
Well, in just a moment, we're going to have both Larry and Judy deliver one of their stories for you. But before we do that, as we look back on the years of Storyfest, 35 years. How did it start?
Oh, well, I don't know, because this is my first Storyfest, so I can't answer that. But
I do. I know how it started.
You've been to many of them.
Yeah, Lori Lizebnik had gone to Johnson City, Tennessee, and they had a big story.
They have the National Storytelling Festival there.
And she came back to Jackson and said, we got to do this here. And they did.
Well, and didn't they used to have all the kids come to Jackson and not send the storytellers out to them?
Yes,
so
you'll remember, Judy, the kids came downtown.
Right, all the civic buildings, churches, synagogue, rain or shine.
Well, we loved it downtown. See thousands of kids walking around, but as you said, it's a logistics nightmare to do it that way. And then, of course, we had construction downtown. So now it seems like it's better. More kids get reached this current way with the storytellers going to the schools. But it's not just in the schools.
Nope, it's sure not. We actually have a showcase on Friday at 7 p.m. at the Jackson Symphony Orchestra's Weatherwax Hall, and we will have a storytelling performances by Adam Melma and Jennifer Strauss, who have been to Jackson many times. So
Great.
It should be really fun.
We have a story from Judy, and then we'll have a story from Larry. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
All right, Judy, it's all yours.
Well, my story is a true story, too.
Those are the best kind.
I was a librarian for 36 years, and when I first started telling stories, and when I first became a librarian, we didn't have automated checkouts. You didn't have a computer. So every afternoon after the kids left, the kids would have to write their name on a card, to check a book out, and then after school I would put them in alphabetical order or by the teachers' names so that we could put them back in the books when the kids came back. And one day I was sitting there putting cards back in the pockets of the books when the door to the library opened, and I heard this clicking noise, and stopped right in front of my desk. And I'm kind of short, so I had to kind of look over to see what was there. And lo and behold, it was a chicken. and I never had a chicken come and check out a book before, but she looked up at me and said, "Bok." So I happened to have Marie Sundek's chicken soup with rice right there. I just put the card in it, and I put it in her beak, and she clomped onto it and waddled out of the room and disappeared. And the next day she came back. She must have liked the book.
Did she return it?
Yes, she returned the book. She came up to the desk and she looked up at me, and I took the book out of her beak, and she went, "Book, book." So I handed her a little red hen and another book, and she opened up her beak really wide, and I put the 2 books in her beak, and she waddled out again. Third day she came back again, and I took the books out of her mouth, and she looked up at me and said, "Bok, bok, 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 bok." So I handed her a whole stack of books, about this many, and she opened up her beak really, really wide, and I stuffed those books into her beak, and she left the library. And then I was thinking, what am I doing? I'm giving a book to a chicken. What will the principal say? What will the superintendent say? I might lose my job. I better find out where she's going. And so I got out from behind my desk, and I followed her out of the room, out of the library, down the hall, past the office, past the front door. And it had rained that afternoon or that evening, and there was a big puddle in the middle of the playground. And the chicken waddled over to that puddle and sat down, got herself comfortable like, and right in front of her happened to be a frog. And so the chicken, she started opening the books, but not the way you would if you were reading it. She opened it up the way you would if you were showing kids picture books. And the frog would go, "Read it, read it, read it, read it," which just goes to show you that if you want to have kids read books, you have to tell the story first.
Well, that was awesome.
That was great.
Yeah. Larry, you got to top that.
I don't know if I can top that.
We're going to take a break, and we'll hear a story from Larry Castleberry, one of Jackson Storyfest Storytellers, when we continue right after this. Talking about the 35th Annual Jackson Storyfest. Rachel Fennersdorf is with us from JDL and the Storyfest, and we have 2 storytellers, Larry Castleberry and Judy Sema, and they are going to be telling stories to students all over Jackson County over the next 2 days, Thursday and Friday. But we get a special preview. We just heard a great story from Judy. And Larry, you have to top Judy.
I don't know if I can top Judy, but I'm going to tell a story. And this is also a 100% true story. Trust me. Now, a few months ago, I told at the Ark. Got a standing ovation. And one of the things I told the crowd there at the Ark is this. There are 2 types of hot sauce in the world. Tabasco and hot sauce not good enough to be Tabasco. I got standing ovation. I went back to my storytelling group. And one day I hope to be a master storyteller. But I am known as one day maybe. But the master storyteller of our group called me to sit down and talk to him. He is known as Today I Am. I went into him. He didn't say a word. He gestured for me to sit down, and I sat down. He gave me a nod of his head, which means tell him about my experience. And so I told him about the audience. I told him how I was telling them about Thanksgiving in the 1980s and how the food was so good when we poured out the Tabasco and added it to the food. And I let them know that there were only 2 types of hot sauce, Tabasco and those not good enough to be Tabasco. He made sure I was finished speaking. Then he started to talk. First he said, young man, do you understand that in the state of Michigan, in the city of Detroit, it was Frank's Red Hot that was first started here. When you eat Buffalo Wild Wings, that is Frank's Red Hot, not Tabasco. He then said, don't you understand that to get us through the Depression, not only was it Ford Motor Company, but Frank's Red Hot that helped Michiganders and Detroiters get through the Depression. And I started to say, I didn't think that was true because I had read that Frank's Red Hot actually started in Cincinnati. But I knew better than to interrupt an elder. But I opened my mouth and he stopped. Because if I had opened my mouth, if I actually said anything, I would have been demoted from one day maybe to no day never will be. But I kept my mouth closed. Didn't utter a word, and then he continued on. He let me know that from here on out, as a Michigander, as a Detroiter, I should never take Tabasco over Frank's Red Hot. A few weeks later, I went down to Memphis, Tennessee. Beale Street, home of the blues. I went to B.B. King's. You know what I didn't see there? I didn't see any Frank's Red Hot. No, I didn't see B.B. King either. But I did not see any Frank's Red Hot. But I did see Tabasco. Now, for the first few days, I had barbecue. But the last day, I had a fish dish that required hot sauce. Right. And as I started to reach for the Tabasco, a disembodied hand suddenly appeared. And in that hand was Frank's Red Hot. And then there was a disembodied voice that said, he who does not listen to his elders is doomed to suffer the consequences. I took the Frank Red Hot. And now I say something different. There are two types of hot sauce in the world. Frank's Red Hot and those not good enough to be Frank's Red Hot.
And to this day, is Frank's Red Hot your preferred hot sauce of choice?
It is.
Now, where was Frank's Red Hot founded?
Well, since the elder will be listening to me, it was in Detroit.
In Detroit. Detroit, of course.
Just like he said. But I think Cincinnati does lay claim to it, or somewhere in Ohio.
Well, you know, just a couple weeks ago, someone sued Texas Pete's Red Hot sauce because it's not from Texas. And apparently it's, you know, in a court now to be decided, but I think that's a bit of a stretch.
Absolutely.
Now, I know the kids are inspired to be storytellers. What, Judy, got you into it?
Telling stories. I heard my first storytellers at a library conference, and I said, I want to do that. And then I started telling Halloween stories to my elementary students. And I dressed up as a witch because I didn't know I could tell stories without dressing up. And they kept they liked the stories. And when I was transferred to the middle school, they kept asking me, why don't I tell them some stories? So right before Christmas one year, I dressed up as Scheherazade, a long caftan, and I told a couple of stories and ended with a couple of scary stories because that's all I knew. And the 8th graders sat there and they listened with their mouths open, and I knew I had gotten something there. So I started a club called the Chatterton Tale Spinners and taught them how to tell stories and go to different places and tell the stories.
And the rest is history.
Right.
29 years later at Jackson Storyfest. Larry, how did you get into storytelling?
Well, believe it or not, my mom would always read to me when I was younger, and she would tell me stories as well as my dad. And oddly enough, I used to be a storyteller, meaning the teacher would call me up in front of class to tell stories when I was in first grade. But if you listen to my mom, it was getting out of homework and coming up with reasons why I didn't get my homework done. That's how I really got started.
Now, you had a job as a teacher.
School librarian,
right. Did you have a job outside of, before you got?
Oh, yes. Engineer for a motor company, 35
really?
years, yes.
Wow. So that inspiration for any of your stories?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Especially for adults, especially for how to overcome, or when you have instances that come to your life that things don't go as planned. How do you persevere? How do you keep smiling? And how do you connect with people?
Nice.
Yeah.
Besides Jackson, there are places elsewhere that have story festivals, and it's an industry. You guys do a lot of traveling, and you're probably with COVID, you had to take a long break. But what's life on the road? What do you guys do?
I don't go on the road very much. You know, I do most of my storytelling, you know, in the metropolitan Detroit area. Occasionally I go outside and do like workshops and things. And with COVID, I was able to do a lot of virtual workshops, which people from California wanted me to teach them how to tell stories, and from North Carolina, and I never would have been able to go there. But it's much better just to be in person. And every year, the first full weekend in October is the International Storytelling Festival in Jonesboro, Tennessee, which is like the mecca of storytelling.
Yeah, and that's where Laurie Lezebnik went, Johnson City and Jonesboro, right next to each other. Larry, you go around?
I basically in the metro areas myself, but I do a lot of telling for Zoom virtual, and COVID was a big help there. So I didn't realize I was on YouTube until people started to call me and say, yeah, I saw you on YouTube, and would you be interested in telling for us? So I've got to do some shows that way.
Awesome. All right, one opportunity for the whole community to enjoy Storyfest. And Rachel, what are the deets?
So that is at the Weatherwax Hall in the Jackson Symphony Orchestra building this Friday at 7 o'clock. So
And it's free.
Yep, free event. Bring the whole family. I'm bringing mine.
All right. Well, great to have you both in Jackson again. Welcome back.
Thank you.
And thanks for taking time to be with us today. We appreciate it.
Oh,
Thank
we
you very
appreciate
much.
it too.
This was
I hope
fun.
They
This was.
build the house, as they say.
35th Annual Jackson Storyfest. And thanks to Jackson District Library and Storyfest Rachel Fenningsdorf, and Storytellers Larry Castleberry and Judy Seema. That's it.